Now, the former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon called on us all to recognize that development and peace are interdependent and mutually reinforcing, and that companies have a key role to play in the implementation of the achievement of SDGs. In our first panel discussion, entitled Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals While Sustaining Peace, our distinguished speakers will demonstrate how the private sector can indeed contribute to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals with a particular focus on SDG number 16. For this, I am pleased to invite to the stage the moderator of this panel discussion, who is one of the prominent CSR experts and advocate for youth development and women empowerment. She's also leading the Embassy Media Group's CSR arm, known as Embassy Al-Amal or Embassy Hope. Please help me welcome Ms. Mariam Farag. Now, I would like to invite our distinguished speakers to come up the stage. Mr. Tunc Ozkan, the Chief Executive Officer of Polaris International Industrial Parks. Ambassador Dr. Khairuddin Abdelatif, former Assistant of Foreign Minister and Vice Chairman of the Board of Trustees in October 6 University in Egypt. Mr. Stephen Young Soompark, Professor and Director at Kyung-hee University and Director of the Institute for Peace through Commerce. Ms. Lori Blaker, Chief Executive Officer of TTI Global. Mr. Mohammad Shihab el-Din, the founder of Resolve Consulting. Now, Mariam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sana. Hello. Good morning, everyone. Is the sound okay? Yes, you can hear me in the back? Good morning, everyone. Sabah al-khair. Okay, so I guess it's fine. Thank you, Sana, for the introduction, and welcome, speakers. This is a very beautiful morning, and to be very honest, on a personal note, I'm very proud to be moderating this panel, not only because it talks about something that's very close to my heart, which is business for peace, or as Laurent put it very nicely, let's make peace our business, which is really, it's very inspirational this morning, so thank you. I'm also in my hometown, and I came all the way from Dubai, so it's an honor to be Egyptian in Egypt, moderating this panel with distinguished speakers from international and global entities, but also from Egypt, so welcome. I would like to start with a quote. I like to give quotes because quotes, I believe, they inspire us. And we like to shake it up a little bit this morning so we can be vibrant and dynamic on this panel. We're the first panel, so we have to give them something, right? So, like Albert Einstein said, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. And I'm a person who's very hopeful and positive. Despite all of the challenges that we have in the world today and the conflicts that we see emerging every single day, we have to find the opportunity in the challenge. And we have to find the solutions rather than just focus on the problems. We have millions of problems, and if we just sit down and think about the problems, we will never find solutions. So I believe today, Business for Peace, and this panel particularly, is here to find solutions from different entities, different horizons, different sectors, if you want. I'm gonna take it a little bit different this morning. We discussed the style, and I will ask each one of you to tell me who you are, but from a personal perspective. Please, we all know your bios. They are truly inspiring, and I have been in awe just reading about every single speaker and even participants throughout the day. But let's talk about the person behind the title. So if you can just tell me in 30 seconds or 60 seconds who you are and familiarize yourself with the audience.
Thank you. Let me try in 30 seconds. I am an entrepreneur. I'm the father of 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. So I make the gender equality in my side. So I'm Turkish. I think that's me. And I'm ex-Navy guy. So have a military school experience. So for that reason, my company name is Polaris North Star. So we like sailing. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Khair Eldin Abdul Latif. I served in diplomacy 36 years till the post of Assistant Foreign Minister for Legal Affairs, for Admin Affairs, and Director of the Diplomatic Institute. My main passion is culture and soft power. I believe that culture is the backbone, the core of international relations. If we really understand culture, we will live in peace. Thank you. I have a granddaughter. Luckily, she is called Mariam. Yes. She's my beloved granddaughter, and I have a grandson, 2 grandsons. One is living in America, and one is living with us here in Egypt. And I have 2 boys. Only 2 boys. Yeah. Right.
Hi, I'm Lori Blaker, and I'm actually one of 4 daughters. We had no brothers in my family, all girls. And I started work with my father when I was very, very young, my early 20s. He had started up a small business, and I was his first full-time employee. And I basically did that out of necessity. I was a young mother at the time, and we were struggling, and my dad gave me a job to help us pay the bills. I actually went on to establish the business as a global business. We're all over the world now, but I think what I'm most proud of is that I was a single mom, and I raised 4 boys and established this global company. So that was quite a ride. I think the kids were more terrifying than the business.
Hi, good morning. I'm from South Korea. I'm teaching at the university. Who am I part? I'm my husband of a wife, and I'm a father of a boy who goes to high school, and also I'm a owner of a dog, Pomeranian, 1-year-old, white color, and I've been teaching at my university for the 20 years, and I'm so happy to share our side of B4P case this morning. Thank you, and nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Now I have a mic of my own, and apparently my mic sounds different. I don't know why. So before we start, Mariam, I have a question. Can we take these cushions as we go? Or? No? Okay. I just got my attention when I got here. So I want to thank you for the question of who you are and not what you do, because I always have a problem explaining what I do, especially to my family. They have no idea what I do. Absolutely no idea. I'm a greedy person. I'm a very greedy person. I like doing so many things, and it's been a very long process, and I think I ended up being a very lucky person who's doing a lot of these things, except one of those. I come from a family business, and I studied business. The expectation was I'm going to get into business, but according to my dad, I lost my way into conflict resolution. According to me, I found my way, but then, I mean, it's a long family dispute that we're trying to resolve. But anyway, I went back to business one way or another, because what I'm doing right now as an investor, as an entrepreneur, is actually I found the equation that after working on the macro level in so many places, I just realized if you work on individuals, on leaders, I work with executive coaching, I work in capacity building, I work on many places, we are capable of making that change. But again, that's probably not what you're looking for. I'm a movie freak, and I love drama, so if anybody having any watching parties for House of Cards or Game of Thrones, just please send me a message, I'm there. So, yeah.
Thank you. So this is great. Thank you so much for sharing your personal profiles, because I can see that all of us share one thing, which is that we have children or pets. And honestly, without peace in the world and without peace between individuals, not just countries, we cannot maintain or even ensure a future for our children and our grandchildren. And this is exactly why we're here today. We want to learn from you how business can contribute to the many efforts of the public sector and many efforts of the government. So I think I'm going to start with Tunc, if you don't mind. We had a few questions, and I want to highlight a little bit of it. So the concept of the private sector as ambassadors for peace, peace through commerce. And I know that you're very passionate about the 10 principles of anti-corruption as well. From your perspective, how do you see commerce contributing to sustainable business? And how do you see that from your business point of view, but also on a global level? Like, how can we come together on a global level? And if you don't mind, just give us like tangible examples, because I know that the audience wants to learn more about tangible examples, not on a general idea, but like a practical experience on ground.
Okay. Thank you very much. I want to share my experiences in Egypt. Maybe it will help. And the peace, you know, whenever we don't have peace, then you can see that there is a problem there, either injustice or not a transparent situation, or not equally sharing or fair sharing, not equally fair sharing on the parties. This comes out as a war or as a fight at the end. So business community, of course, has a lot of effect on the peace, because we create jobs, we create food, we create social environment for the employees and everything. But besides that, the business community actually creates the environment, business environment, first of all, for himself. And sometimes business people complain about the environment which they created, actually. I want to give you an example. I'm living in Egypt, I'm working in Egypt last 11 years. I'm a major investor here as a Turkish businessman. And if I ask many of the people, or to you, if I ask, is there any corruption in Egypt? Most of you will say yes. Especially the Egyptian friends will say even more loud, yes. But I can tell you, there is no corruption in Egypt. I'm working only with government. My business is with the government. There is no corruption. Nobody in the last 11 years asked from me anything as a corruption. But I didn't ask from no one anything that it is not my right. It is not out of law. It is not something that I will gain extra on it. So the corruption is always, I am telling, two-way road. One way who gives the bribe, the other one is who takes the bribe. They are coming together. They are not alone. They are not one side. There are two sides. So for the business community, what we have to do, I believe so much, we mustn't be greedy. If you are greedy, if you ask something extra for yourself, there is the other part of it. So for example, I will give you another example that I faced. Why you will pay? Two things. Some things are getting very slow in Egypt, but there is a time. It happens in 3 months. It happens in 4 months. You know that it won't be in 10 days. It won't be in 2 weeks. If you want to shorten the time, then some people will maybe come to you. But as a business person, you have to know that this is 4 months. That's it. or something that you can say that, okay, let me sign a contract and then I can handle later. So you open another door again. So if you don't do these things, nothing happens. If you go,
So let me just interrupt for 1 second. And so you're basically saying that people create corruption. It's not
Definitely.
the systems that create corruption, it's people.
I
So
believe
you're telling me that in 11 years you have not asked to break the system, you have not asked to break the process, and therefore there was nothing asked of you because you didn't ask back. That's basically it.
Exactly, this is what I'm saying. So this matter is very important for the business community because the corruption generates inequality. The corruption kills the fairness. The corruption kills the all transparency. So this is bring the war because you see your friend getting something which he doesn't deserve actually, and you couldn't, and then you start. This is so for the business community. What we have to do, we have to agree first of all in our side. We have to be fair, and we mustn't make any extra effort to get something extra which is not in our right. So then we kill the corruption concept.
Thank you, Tunc. In fact, it's very interesting because you mentioned something at the beginning. You said that most Egyptians would say there is corruption in Egypt. And as an Egyptian, I would say the same. But you are saying from a business perspective, as a foreign investment, you have not faced that. Lori, you're very global. You work in over maybe 15 countries, and you work in different markets, much more, in fact. Right. Different continents and so on. You have a very rich background, and you do. I'm sure that you come through a lot of corruption.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Can you shed light on that, please?
Sure. I've encountered it all over the world. It's not something that just happens in Egypt or just happens in.
If you can speak through the mic.
Latin America, it's something that happens everywhere. And being an American, there's very strict laws and regulations that prohibit us from engaging in any form of corruption. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But some of the specific examples I've seen, they can be very small, they can be very large. We actually lost a huge project in Brazil one year because we refused to pay a senior executive, one of the companies that we were working for. We refused to buy his family a new washing machine and a new dryer. I mean, it can be as simple as that. And you just have to say no. And probably some of the toughest examples of corruption that I've run into is actually our work in Afghanistan. We opened an automotive service repair center and a training center in Kabul. And our operation, we follow all proper procedures. We have our business license, but we wanted to move this location, and in order to secure a business license for the new location, the city official that we were dealing with insisted that we had to pay him $200. And obviously we refused, and this man just absolutely refused to give us a business license. And he shut down our operation for 3 months because we couldn't operate without that business license, because he would send people in to threaten my people that he was going to throw them in prison. So what I ended up doing, obviously we're not going to pay anybody anything. And what just outraged me even more was he was endangering his own people. And they're working hard trying to make a living, and he was shutting them down and ruining this opportunity that we had, to the point where I actually thought we were going to have to close shop. But I used my network, and I think that's probably one of the single biggest things that we've used to get around situations like that all over the world. China, Brazil, Afghanistan, wherever we are, you have to use your network. Who do you know that can put pressure on someone, to get this problem eliminated, and to make sure that these people know that you are not going to engage in paying bribes. So we actually tried to use our government contacts, our government network. That didn't work. And then we ended up using our Afghan military connections. to get to this, a resolution to this particular situation. So it just was ridiculous what happens. And we have to say no. Everybody's got to say no. And it's not just, we've got to legally handle the situation. There's got to be laws in place and regulations, but we have to evolve to the point where it's morally and socially inappropriate. And I think that just takes time. And unless we all say no, we've got to start somewhere. So to your point, we just have to say no.
Absolutely, and I think it's not just saying no. I think the misperception and the behavior of people in general, be it big or small. I mean, corruption is not just in businesses. Corruption is in renewing a license.
Well,
people just don't want to do it the right way. People want to get the wasta, or what we call a connection in the Arab world. Oh, no, I don't want to go. It's not the fault of the government. In fact, we always have to go back to the people
you're dealing with.
It's behavioral.
And I know in a lot of countries, for example, the public servants are paid so little that they can't hardly survive. So the bribes that they get allow them to survive. So, there's the issue there that we have to make sure that we're paying somebody a adequate living allowance,
absolutely.
Wage.
Absolutely. Talking about behavior, there is a quote that says 10% of conflict is due to difference in opinion and 90% is due to wrong tone of voice. Now, Your Excellency, Dr. Khairuddin, you have worked immensely in diplomacy, and immensely in protocol and behavior, and the do's and the don'ts when negotiating deals and talking to different people from different cultures. And you did mention the passion about culture. And it's very true, because culture can either make it or break it, or the ignorance of it. Can you give us, you have worked in so many continents and so many different backgrounds with different people. Can you give us your opinion from your experience on how important is diplomacy and protocol to creating peace, one, and sustaining it, two, and perhaps maybe even within the business of it? Because Lori, you did mention that every continent is different, every country even in Latin America is different. You had to go to military, you had to go to different sectors in order to push and get your business done. Doctor, can you give us a little bit of your overview?
Thank you, Mariam. As I said earlier, that, I have a strong belief that culture is the main agent of interaction and the core of international relations. And if you wrongly behave, you could lose your counterpart, either in business or in diplomacy or even bilateral, multilateral relations. We have so many examples in the world. If you wrongly play the national anthem of a country, like it happened before, the national anthem of Taiwan, instead of People's Republic of China, you see what is the reaction. This could lead to even severing diplomatic relations. That's why we are, as academia, we give much attention to teaching and raising awareness about traditions, which is an integral part of culture. Culture means, in its wider sense, religion, traditions, customs, behavior, the accepted social behavior. And that's why it's of extreme importance, not only for diplomacy, but for business also, for the normal conduct of people in their bilateral relations, to teach them how to behave. We had the issues of precedence, the issues of greeting, the issues of titles, how to address people, and the language, body language, the face language. All these things are very instrumental in interactions and in relations. Negotiations could fail if you commit a blunder, a protocol blunder. And that's why it's always advised for everyone, not only in business or diplomacy, to be aware of the main elements of conduct, social conduct.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Mr. Stephen, you worked immensely in economic growth, and let's go back now to business for peace and economic growth and how it can actually help societies reach social cohesion and reach, conflict resolution. Can you share insights into the economic zone between the North and South Korea and how businesses operating there have contributed to peace, especially with the conflict that is still standing as we speak?
Well, thank you, Mariam. Yes, the case is so-called Kaesong Industrial Complex Economic Zone, which is located in North Korea, and some more than 100 South Korean business establishments are operating in this special zone, and they do their own business there, but consciously, they engaging in these kind of, SDG, like the purpose from the beginning. So we are looking at this case where South Korean business establishments operating in North Korea can eventually contribute to some of this development, sustainable development of the North Korea, and in the end, peaceful, the relationship between South and North Korea, and eventually, as you may know, the Korean people are the same people, so eventually reunification of the peninsula. So this is a whole grand vision of the project that I'm talking about, and for these more than 100 business establishments operating in this complex for the last more than 15 years, daily basis, and some companies are engaging in gender equality issue, and they're taking it so seriously, and then they do provide some programs for this the North Korean workers there, and this might affect some of the the development in the society. So this is a very special project for us, and obviously this depends on the surrounding context of the international community, and so we keep going on with our efforts with this peace building in the Korean Peninsula through the project of this special economic zone.
Mr. Stephen, this is a true testament of how two countries or two nations or two individuals, anything, two entities can actually go beyond their differences for economic growth and for focusing on sustainable development goals and for youth empowerment and so on. Can you give us a little bit, it's a beautiful story and it's very successful, but what were the challenges on the way? What did you face and how did you overcome it to actually have this successful model? Because I'm sure the audience would like to learn more about the resilient process behind it.
Again, we believe this case is significant because this is what scholars in the peace studies say, that even though at the macroscopic level there is some sort of announcement of the peace contract or agreement at the very macro level, but in the end, this peace building process, it's all about daily basis, right? The frontline people get together and live together. And we believe that this complex will provide wonderful opportunity for not only for the North Korean people, but also for South Korean people. So we learn from North Korean community workers and partners there and government people there, what are their customs and way of living and so on and so forth. The mutual learning process is there because two Koreas have been separated for the last 70 years. In terms of volatility or challenges, I think there are two sides. One is contextual, outside, so to speak. For example, that's the international political kind of circumstances, which is very uncertain, but quite fortunately for the last 10 months, the situation has developed so dramatically. So we are looking at some positiveness in that, the circumstance. That's for sure very important. But at the same time, as gentlemen before and also mentioned before, it's all about business leadership. So after all, it happens at the business level. So unless we have conscious business leaders to do this and continue their journey with all this, that will not happen. the kind of things that we are talking about here will not happen. So I think it's all about business leadership.
100%. I'm sure everybody agrees here that, and it is a great model to perhaps look at as a successful model and replicate. Hamad, you have worked for 17 years now in conflict resolution and policies trying to, raise awareness, but also teach it. And, with the economic zone example, what are we doing wrong? And how can we marry the private and the public sector and everybody's role within the society and the communities to actually reach an understanding of the desperate need of socioeconomic growth and go beyond our differences, go beyond what's happening on the chairs of the chairs of egos, as I like to call it, and move away from that. Can you give us some insights?
Sure, but your question starts with what are we doing wrong? I don't know if we're doing anything wrong, because if we're doing something that's so wrong, we would be so eager to change it. But since we're not doing anything, then maybe we're not doing anything wrong. Maybe this is what we want. Maybe this is what we need. Maybe this is what we are okay with. Because you change because of two issues. There are two major sources of change, which is basically cost and interest. So when the cost becomes too expensive for you to maintain the same course, you start changing. When the interest is not achieved, you change. So if there's something in the equation of how we do business and how we're handling conflict and peace is not really changing, then perhaps we're not doing anything wrong because we are okay with it. And I want to build on what you mentioned right now, that perhaps corruption is not necessarily systematic, it might be organic sometimes. I want to build on this on a very local story. Long time ago, like 14, 15 years ago, I came back to Egypt after a very long trip and stay outside, and I wanted to renew my ID. And I went to one of the local offices, and I asked the gentleman there to just get me my right, get me everything. And the office manager, by the time I was done, it was taking forever to get the stuff. And I assumed that he is probably looking for a little bit of cash under the table to get things done, but that was not the case. He looked at me and he said, listen, I want to get your stuff, I want to get it for you as soon as I can. But here's what I want you to do. Most people are willing to pay 50 pounds, maybe 100 pounds to get that stuff done. I don't want you to do that. I want you to take that money, go across the street, there's a bookstore, buy me some pens, some paper, some stationery, bring it back here because I don't have them. Buy them from me and I'll get your stuff done. Now, did I just bribe him? I don't know. But he thought about it in a very systematic way where he understands that people are willing to do this. He does not want to do something wrong, but there's something wrong that's already been done in the system. He tweaked it in a way where I did something that I did not really feel wrong and crossing my values. And the pain that he had, that's the most important thing, the pain that he had, not getting his job done, made him creative enough to get things done. So Mariam, I think it's a matter of changing the question, my dear. It's a matter of changing the narrative. Most of the time in peace building and in conflict, we keep asking how. How do we stop the fight? How do we stop this? And we also think all the time on mega level. I think pretty much the equation is the same, whether if it's domestic violence, a fight in a neighborhood, a big war. Sometimes the question is not the how, the question is the why. Why are we in there and why would we get out of it? That's the most important question. Now, another important question, why is the investment in armament is in billions and billions of dollars more than any kind of investment that's been done in peace? And most of the time, the investment that's been done in peace is in conferences and in giving money to the wrong parties, to invite them in five-star hotels, to be in the right place, the right time, taking the right pictures, but not necessarily to do the right deal that's actually sustainable because it's nobody's interest to make it sustainable. And you know why? Because of interest. Because the lobbyists of the companies that are making a lot of money out of armament are much stronger than any peace activist and any other company and any other organization that's spending on this. So if you want to really make the difference, change the why. We make things, I'm going to provoke a little bit more. I want to take you further from the idea is peace is good and we have to stop fighting because fighting is bad and we have to do things differently. Let me ask you on the audience one, two questions. When you say business for peace, two names come in my mind. Businessmen, hotshots, very rich people who are dedicated to fighting evil and peace. I don't know if you guys know them. Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne. Anybody familiar with the names? Also known as, come on, Come on, guys, give me a hand here. Iron Man and Batman. What do they do? What they do? They're traumatized, right? They have some issues. They're kids with issues, rich kids with issues. They decided to take their business and make amazing machines and be so cool, go in the dark and make a difference. Hallelujah, good. How sustainable is that? How long are they going to keep doing that? I mean, change of mind, they get married to the wrong person, they have too many kids. I want to go out tonight and fight the darkness, but nah, I don't feel like it. That's not really sustainable. You want to make it sustainable. Businesses, and not only private sectors and large companies, even entrepreneurs, they have to understand that it's in their best interest. It is in their best interest because they are a profit-making company. They will make profit and they will make it sustainable if they are helping one themselves internally to the community and even on a global level to make things differently because they have an interest in it, because it will hurt them, it will hurt their business, and they will be pain. This is a point on the conflict curve when you say it's mutually hurting soulmates. All the parties are so hurt, now they're going to sit down and go there. Sometimes we get involved as mediators, bringing some solutions for young entrepreneurs for conflict resolution inside. And you know what's really funny? You sit with them, and in the beginning, they have the lovey-dovey stage where we're partners, we're going to love each other, we believe in what we do, we're going to build a company that's going to be amazing, and we'll never have fights. And then once they get their first investment, you have issues, okay? So you sit with them and you have values issues. You sit with them and you realize that one of the things is, what do we do? Who do we hire? Where do we work? And how diverse should we go? Is that against our values or not? I will just give you one story because I know you probably need to move. But just give me 1 minute here. I have a client. I will ask you to be excused for mentioning the name. And it's a huge client. It's a huge company in the automotive industry. And their biggest operation, their biggest factory is in some slums outside Cairo. And it's very violent. The level of conflict, for so many reasons that I'm not going to even go through it right now, is so high. And they have been threatened so many times by the community itself where they work on, and their business has been ruined so many times. And here's what they did. They did not invest money in health, although I think this is a brilliant idea. I think it's one of the best things you could do is investing in health. But they did not do that. They did not give money for charity. What they did is they took a huge piece of land, they bought it, they emptied it, they built a technical vocational school for kids in that neighborhood, and they said it's for free. Instead of going to the regular education, just going to that school, you're going to get primary and secondary school, and you get out of that school, and you will be hired immediately. And in 5 to 7 years, they were protected by the neighborhood, they were protected from anyone, by the stakeholders, and it's one of the most peaceful, consistently peaceful and sustainable neighborhood. And not because peace is good, but because it's needed, and because the lack of peace costs, and everybody will protect it.
100%. I agree with what you, and I love your passion, by the way, Muhammad. You're very passionate about this. A lot of people ask us, why do we have a corporate social responsibility for a media company? Yeah, this is what I lead on. And it's very simple, because if we don't have empowered communities, we will no longer have a business. It's very simple. So we will no longer have advertisements that pay for our wages to air for free, because NBC airs for free. And it just makes business sense. Like you said, if we do not invest in the communities and sustainably invest, because when we look at the SDGs, it's called Sustainable Development Goals. It's not called development goals. So we cannot sustain the impact if it's not long-term, if we don't see the return on investment. You did mention something very important. We have to invest internally and externally as well. Lori, you are an advocate for women empowerment and gender equality, and gender equality has been mentioned a few times now since we started. I myself, I'm a very big advocate of women empowerment, because I believe, and we had that conversation before the panel, women and children are the ones that are viciously and brutally victimized during war and conflict. Yet, children, youth, and women are rarely invited to the decision-making table, and rarely given the type of empowerment in order to excel in whatever field that they are doing. You're a woman in leadership, you're a woman in business leadership. How do you help women reach that extra mile, and what are the can you share with us a few examples of what have you done in your own company for gender equality?
Sure. I think as business leaders, as a leader anywhere, in government, business, you have to make a conscious decision that this matters. And then you've got to put the structure in place and measure it. Because if I don't hold people accountable, then nothing's going to happen. Because, you're bucking up against traditions, norms that have been in place for, so many years. So I think as a leader, what I do is, I have made a conscious decision that we are going to have a diverse organization. My CFO is female. I've got senior management within the entire organization, and obviously we work globally, and so it's a diverse team. And you have to seek that out, and it's not easy to find, but you have to make it, it's your goal. It's something that you believe so strongly in that you get it done. And I think the benefits of that for my organization, for my company, for my people, is we approach a problem with a very diverse perspective. We've got input from all over the world, and then we've got input from men, from women, from different cultures. And I think that's why we've been so successful, because we have that, diverse perspective. And we don't take a problem and only look at one solution. We look at a solution that's going to benefit everybody. And I think as leaders, we have to make sure if we're sitting around a table and it's all men, that there's something wrong with this picture. So we've got to change it.
You want to change laws for women, you need to bring women to the decision-making table, not all men, and it has to be. I really admire what His Excellency Secretary General Antonio Guterres did, which is the 50-50 policy this year. And I think, all board members and all companies need to really not just admire that policy, but actually action it.
Embrace it.
100%. We also mentioned children, Where do children come within this equation? Because it's just mind-boggling that the child labor is still there. Businesses are still using children in factories and selling and thinking this is responsible. Where does it end? I would love Lori to shed light on that, but I also would like Tunc as well to give us a few insights, because we talked about fair sharing and transparency, and yet we still are using children that are 7, 8, 9-year-old in factories working above 18 hours a day, making money off of them when they're supposed to be in school, when they're supposed to be safe, and then yet we're talking about business for peace. Let's talk about that. What are businesses doing to stop this from happening?
Thank you, Mariam. Now, again, we have to think first what is right and what is wrong. And most of the times, the right things and the wrong things is clear. The child labor is wrong. We must stop it. How we can do it? And everybody says, okay, I want to stop it. We have to stop it. We have to make it as a business community. We mustn't hire those people, those childs. We mustn't find a reason to hire them, because I will tell you my experience in our industrial park. When we started to construct the industrial park, first of all, our contractors, they are bringing the labor. In the morning, I see many childs around. I told my people, what is this? They are saying that these are labor. How come? These are 12 years old, 13 years old, 15 years old child, 40 degrees, and they are working 12 hours, 10 hours, sometimes more in the desert. I said no. And I called the contractor and I told them, look, we will put the security, we will tell the security, we will not allow anyone to go in as a child. Whatever, if it is your son, I don't allow it. And the next thing, he told me, look, if I don't take them, the cost will be higher because they are cheap. Yani they are giving, if they are giving a man, let's say 10, they are giving those childs 4.
Cheap labor.
Cheap labor. I said, okay, what will be the difference on your cost? You didn't know, in your contract there is nothing like this. But what will be? I will pay it. Don't bring them. And the next reason, but if I don't bring them, they need money. They need money for their family. What their family will do? You are hurting them. No, this is again a decision. No, we have to find another solution for their family. This is not the solution to make these boys and kids, when you look at your own children, you never let them to do this. And you cannot allow the other one to do this. So this is why we have to find things, right things. Like Lori said, we have to say no. No, whatever the cost is, no. And then when I saw this experience, the next step we put in our contracts with our investors. We said that we will never allow any child labor in our industrial zone. And thanks God, today we achieved it. It's a little bit, it is not that easy maybe at the beginning, but the good things needs an effort.
Absolutely.
So this is what I will...
Thank you so much, and this is a great example, but the problem is we have to take it from the other angle that you mentioned. Now, these kids are forced to go into labor because of their socioeconomic difficult situations. So we are faced with two issues. We're faced with, okay, let's take them out of work, but then they will end up on the street begging. So that's another situation here that we are creating. We're not creating a solution, we're actually creating another problem, which is children at risk. And I have a personal story that happened to me yesterday that I'm not going to get into, but there are over 3 million kids that are on the streets in Egypt, and these are just the counted ones. And because of their economic situation, this is the reality. Now, vocational training is one of many solutions, but I would like to share one solution of World Food Program that was actually working very successfully in Egypt, and we have partnered with them on that initiative. It's called Meals for School. And basically, they solve the issue of the family. So they provide the family with a considerable amount to be able to feed the family and contribute to the economic situation, but at the same time, be able to send the kids to school. Because let's face it, when children are taken out of school, mainly it's the girl, not the boy. And by the age of 14, everybody's out of school and everybody's working. So if we have to resort to child labor because we have to help the families, let's do it responsibly. I'm scared to say that, but it is the reality of the situation. There are so many programs in Jordan, for example, for Syrian refugee children. They are facing the fact that children have to work because they're refugees now, and this is the sad situation and the reality, but they are educating the businesses, educating their bosses, if you want, on how to treat them responsibly. How many hours are they supposed to work? What kind of skills are they learning in order for them to become the entrepreneurs of the future? It's blowing our minds. I know, Shihab, you have something to say on this, right? Because
yeah, it's not directly related to the child labor itself. I'm agreeing with everything, but I just want to build on what you both just mentioned right now, because this is really crucial, and it's not limited to the business sector or the private sector. It actually goes to the civil society and it goes to everybody else, because I don't know what building you guys were building, but let's say it's a hospital for children, and it's such an emotional, amazing case. Now you have to save money, and you don't have investors who would approve that, and you have a limited budget, you're in a pickle. What are you going to do? And unfortunately, in the civil society, and I know that most of us have interacted or worked somewhere there, and financially you have to make decisions about what exactly you're going to do with the money, when and how you're going to spend it. Same thing goes for business. And here I think it's very important, Mariam, to acknowledge what we call context sensitivity. It comes from conflict sensitivity originally, which is whenever you're working in a conflict zone, you have to be sensitive to the conflict and how you're affecting it. We started working on this in Resolve 2 years ago on building context sensitivity tool where basically you have to ask these questions. It's not only about why you're doing it, why you're doing the business and what you're trying to achieve, but also what exactly are the consequences and the repercussions of everything that you're doing on the long term to all stakeholders. For example, you are doing as a business or as an NGO, you're doing business to empower women or to empower girls and to keep them in school and to tell them that domestic violence is not acceptable, you should not accept it, and you do all your KPIs. You train them, they have fun, they're well educated, they're aware, you're good to go. And then you leave. Then they go to implement what you told them. They get beaten up, they get killed, they get many other stories that I'm sure you are aware of it. So what you did is you did your job, you did it well, your company went in, you made profit, it was responsible profit, you did not do anything wrong to the environment, but at the same time, how far do you look in there? And I think it's really crucial to understand that the effect of what we do goes beyond. You mentioned NBC and you mentioned media and advertising, and this is really crucial. Private or not private, because businesses are the major financing source for media, and media, one way or another, affects the perception of how people perceive conflict and the parties and the stakeholders of conflict, and they can really, in building the narrative, they can play a huge role on deciding on specific decisions. So as business, I can make a decision by saying, not only I will not hire children, not only I will make sure that whoever is working here is not enforced, I will make sure that the minimum wage, all of this is good. But also, is my business contributing to that conflict here, or is it going to increase the conflict, or make irrational escalations that should not be here, or not? It's a conscious decision that you have to make. What are the media and what are the stakeholders that I'm supporting them automatically, that I can actually influence them? Not say and turn a blind eye, but I can actually influence them by saying, I will not advertise on channels that are actually promoting for specific issues that are against my values. I'm not going to preach here for what are these values. It's their business, your business. But it's not a small issue that we just deal with. It's much, much bigger than this, and there's much more that we can do.
It's very comprehensive, and it's looking at a company's DNA. It's the business, it's the DNA within the business. It's no longer, and this is how sustainable business can actually contribute to societies, because it's no longer a small team doing, some charity activities once or twice a year, and then we call it a responsible business. It's a whole chain of shared values, and you mentioned stakeholders. 100%. Dealing with responsible businesses like you and refusing to work with companies that do not accept international labor laws, that do not pay the minimum wages, that employ child labor. Please go ahead.
I just want to say something. Yes, you are right. It is not only the solution to say no, but to make the next step as a social responsibility. For example, in my company, we had a foundation for social responsibility, and we train up to now more than 15,000 blue collar. We train most of the nurses in Egypt, and we invest on the kids' hospitals as playgrounds. This kind of, you have to do it. This is not a profit. This is intangible profits. And in the business community, of course, we are working for profit. But the profit is today, tomorrow. To sustain the profit, you have to improve your environment. This is what I'm trying to say. And in this environment, if something wrong, we have to say this is wrong. And I want to give you, one more example. With my younghood, when I started the business, I'm in textile business, and one of my customers, he is still my customer, 27 years, like my godfather, he gave me the first order. I'm selling garment to him, and we are talking about Germany, he's a German, and Turkey. At that time in Turkey, the unregistered economy is very high, it's really nearly maybe 70% of the economy is unregistered, and we are always talking about how good we are avoid the tax, we are not paying that much tax at that time. And then one day, we are talking again in Germany. I told that I'm really jealous about German infrastructure. The kids are going to school, but with their bicycle. In our case, we have to give a private cars or the minibuses to arrive and everything. I'm talking about the goodness of Germany. And he told me one thing I never forget. Tunc, don't complain. You are not paying tax, so you don't have the services from the government. The first thing I told him, yeah, we don't give tax because we don't know how the government will spend this tax. So we are not giving. He said, okay, this is why you are not controlling your government. You don't pay, you don't care. So if you pay, you will care and you will take the service. So what I believe, we have to do the right things every time, and then we find a solution to the next problem. Then it will be easy. 100%. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's definitely misperceptions. It's definitely changing the narrative, and rightfully so. The media has a big role to play with raising awareness on even social enterprises. And I know that I don't want to get into this topic because I know that there's another panel that's going to talk about social entrepreneurship and so on, but they do play a big role. Everyone has a role to play. It's not the government responsibility, it's not the diplomatic responsibility, it's everyone's role together, private sector and so on. I believe the audience have a role to play as well. So we only have 10 minutes, and I would like to take a few questions from the audience to engage a little bit of what you have heard, and if you have anything to add, any input, any comments, we will have people going around. If I can just organically manage this, you just raise your hand and I'll call on you, and then you can say your name, your entity, and your question, and who are you addressing the question to? Come on, I'm sure there's a lot of, yeah, we have one right there. And then I would like to leave some time as well for the last statements. I would like you to give just one message from yourselves to others today. Can we have the question, please? Do we have mics going around?
Hello, good morning.
Can we quickly manage a mic for the lady over there, the young lady over there, please?
There are more mics here if you want.
Okay, so we have a lady over there that needs a mic. Yes, thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Lina Ahmed, MBC Al Amal Ambassador. I want to share some point. Is the corruption the responsibility of the government or responsibility of us? I don't know. From my point of view, corruption is the responsibility of us, our values, our ethics. I have been trained at many institutions, private sector and the government, and I found it's not all about government. I think it's all about legacy. It's all about our rules we set towards this organization, our loyalty to work and love this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Minna. Would anyone like to?
I think it's interesting. Maybe if we take all the questions and then we start dividing them, or you want to pick on that right away? Yeah, you prefer that? Yeah.
One more question. We only have one room for one point. We have one over there. Hands up. Getting direction from
Good morning. I'm Wael Rashidi, founder of Guiders Consult. Actually, we are a management consultant that specializes in corporate governance and implementation of ISO standards. From the discussion that we had here, and from the different perception about the business and the integrity and the corruption as well. Definitely, we all know that the definition of the business itself might vary from someone to the others, because at the end of the day, the activity are different. However, what if we created a new terminology that called a peaceful business? I mean, a sort of a standard that give us the credibility as a business that we are complying with those criteria to confirm that we are following the global SDGs, as well as guaranteeing that we are dealing with a reputable company that complies and following the peaceful standards.
In fact, if you don't mind, if you become one of the UNGC signatories, you are in fact part of that. So we can talk about that after the panel, and you can in fact ask the United Nations Global Compact Network in Egypt. It is a standing, that's exactly what they do. So if you are a company signatory of the UNGC, whether inside your community or on a global level, these are the checks and balances that they do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We no longer have time for questions, but our speakers will be here throughout the day. You can approach them, you can ask them, you can have a discussion with them. I would like to thank you very much, but before we end, I would like you to leave just 30 seconds of one message to other businesses. What do they need to do right in order to achieve peace becoming our business? Because I think I'm going to take that, copyright IOM. But it's true. How can we make peace our business in 30 seconds? Hamad, go.
Yeah, sure.
Timing.
Okay, I'm concerned that trending stories are becoming very too much influencing, so stop picking causes that are trending. It's nice to work with immigrants, it's nice to work with children, it's nice. Stop the trending thing. Pick the cause that, one, you think it's really important for your business and it's affecting your business. Two, you can really add value and you have comparative advantage more than anybody else. Three, you can actually have a clear influence that creates a role model later on. Stop following trendy stories and trends that makes things nice on social media. Pick the right causes that are really important. Thank you.
Mr. Stephen?
Thank you. The case that I would like to share with you this morning was about, Korean conflict. Korean conflict, yes, it's very complicated issue, and it's so nice that we can do something about this world. Well, in fact, Korean conflict is a world issue, global issue. So if you can do something, that's nice. So please keep having the support for our B4P movement to our project. And the answer to your question is, well, I think UN Global Compact 5 steps management model will help. And continuing our journey of responsible business and ultimately for building peace is all about reflective process. And being reflective and being conscious and being on the right track will make the journey go on. Thank you.
I think as business leaders, we need to become more socially conscious and accept social responsibility for what's going on within our organizations. Me as a leader, it's my responsibility to make sure that we are doing the right thing. And I think as business leaders, it's something that we need to insist on, and the general population, the public, needs to hold us accountable. So I think that's to me is key. And I just want to make one other point when we were talking about women and empowerment. We're putting much needed effort into making sure we have programs and support systems to help empower women. But let's not forget, we also need to do the same thing for young men and boys, because it doesn't start when they're 30, 40, or 50. It starts when they're born. And it's important for us to instill in our young people all around the world a sense of respect for each other.
Thank you. First, building a culture of peace at all levels, from bottom up and up down, is very instrumental in our endeavors now. Second, ensuring national ownership of all our engagement activities and actions. These are the two guarantees of successful and sustainable development. Thank you.
I just want to finish my words with, as a businessman, we are looking for always profit in our companies, but the right things, the good things, is not that much costly to do. So if we agree from the beginning, we will do like this, it will be part of our cost, but it is not killing our profit. In the long run, it will bring us more profit. This is what I believe. So for that reason, I really believe from my heart the 10 principles of United Nations Global Compact, and we sign it and we implement it. There is no cost of it.
Absolutely. Yes, you're very right, because the cost of today will be 10 billion more in 10 years. If I may, on behalf of everyone here, I would like to thank you very much for such an inspiring panel. And I would like to leave the audience as well with one message, is that we have seen socially responsible businesses today. We have seen socially responsible individuals today, because a business starts with individuals. A business is about people, and countries are about people. What I would like to leave you with is that don't wait for events to communicate what you do. I come from media, so storytelling is very important. We need more inspiring stories. We have problems, they will never end, but we need hopeful stories to inspire business people, to inspire leaders in political leaders, economic leaders, social leaders, civil society, youth, children, women, everyone to take a role and to start with one person. If you start with one person, you can help another person, and if it replicates, we will have like a positive domino theory. But storytelling is key. Tell your story, tell your company story, don't be shy, just inspire others. And thank you very much.